Good day, this is Terry Difazio, and you're watching Dial It Up. My guests today are Brian Smith, representative from Orleans 1, and Miss Vicki Strong from Orleans, Caledonia. It's good to see you both again. Vicki is a frequent flyer, and I'm hoping that Brian becomes the same.
Thank you for having us here today.
Yeah, thank you
Appreciate it.
very much, Terry.
Been a lot going on in Montpelier, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as we call it. And I guess the first thing I'd like to ask you is, since the last time both of you were on, and I know you were both on fairly recently, what has changed in Montpelier since then?
I don't think much has changed. We've just been waiting for what's going to be happening this week as a veto session that we're going to have. It started off being Wednesday and Thursday, and now I think it's expanded to Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and possibly Saturday.
I hope not. I hope not. That's taxpayer dollars, $30,000 to $40,000 a day, to really basically override the governor's vetoes that were bills that can wait. They don't even need to be passed right now. They weren't
right.
high priority bills, but for whatever reason, they're ramping up it as being a big deal. So
What sort of things are being looked at as far as overriding his veto? What sort of bills?
there's three of them, I believe.
And two of them involve non-citizen voting in Winooski and in Montpelier, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Vicki, but I think those are two vetoes right there. And the other one, is it the contractor bill?
No, it was a bill out of judiciary having to do with youth and
That's right.
changing the criteria for records that are kept against them if they commit a crime under the age of 18. And the governor just wasn't really ready to let that pass yet for a few reasons.
I think they raised the age to 25 or...
Yeah, where their records are suppressed or not known based on the severity of the crime. So obviously the big, I forget what they call it, 12 or whatever, murder, grand theft and things like that, that would be on their record, but some other lower crimes and misdemeanor kind of things wouldn't be on their record. So that's a little controversial, why the governor picked that bill, why these other bills are coming up. I don't know. I just don't see the importance of it. I think it can wait. These bills can wait till next session or till January.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now, are you guys anxious to get in-person meetings back as opposed to Zoom meetings?
Absolutely.
I think so. I think the majority of folks feel that we're not doing good governing on Zoom. I don't think you can debate well.
I don't think we get the opportunity to do good governing.
No.
When you're in the House in session, you at least have the opportunity. I'm fairly new compared to the time you've been there, Vicki, but it's good to be able to get a lobbyist opinion because, when you're in one certain committee, I'm in transportation, you're in ag.
Yes.
You learn all about transportation, you learn all about ag and ag committee, but you don't know what's going on in the other committees. The opportunity to talk with a lobbyist when you hear about a bill, you can corner one of them and they'll tell you exactly what's going on with that bill. Right now, we don't have that opportunity to keep up with what is really going on. So being in-house is going to be a big advantage for everyone, I think.
I take it that both of you would like to see these Zoom meetings end fairly soon?
I think they're not going to necessarily end, Terry. I have this feeling that there'll be some kind of opportunities to still Zoom for people who have to travel or bad weather. I don't know how it'll all work out.
I don't either. I'd like to see it gone.
Yeah.
It is just my opinion, and this is not a universal thing. But my opinion, Zoom has made some people quite lazy in the fact that, well, I don't want to go to the meeting. Can I Zoom in?
Yeah,
And it's like, come on, this is part of your job,
right.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with that.
Yeah.
So you think that Zoom meetings are still going to be, I mean, I can see the advantage to certain aspects of Zoom meetings. You know, somebody is sick or the weather is really horrible. I can
Right.
understand that.
Yeah.
Well, I've driven back and forth from Montpelier when the weather was really horrible, and I made it every single time.
No.
And I knew that was going to happen when I ran and got elected, that I was going to be going to these meetings. And the option of bad weather is staying in Montpelier. And I don't like Zoom. It's gotten me off. It's gotten me short-tempered at home, in my office where I do my real job. And I think it's just better. It's healthier for people to be in their seats in Montpelier.
Well, it almost takes the human element out of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and for
Becomes-
the public too.
Becomes sort of mechanical and machine-like.
Yes, it's very bizarre. I don't even think it's good for your health,
I don't think it is either.
mental
No.
health, physical health. So, and the public can't participate. That's what's beautiful about our governing in Vermont, is the public has access to us personally every day. They walk in the State House, we see them, they greet us. We see the governor walk by. It's just a really nice
It is.
citizens legislature, but now we're like, you're looking at us from a screen, and that just isn't right.
It almost feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it almost seems like it's divided people even more.
I'm sure it probably has. In a sense of even like
In some cases, yeah,
being together, just being together, talking,
that's right.
you know, kind of having a fellowship together or just camaraderie, it's changed that dramatically.
And you get an opportunity to discuss bills with members of the majority party, the other party, and you can talk with them. You can go to lunch, and you can agree to disagree, and you can joke about their stand on it, and it's a little bit more personal when you have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
On Zoom, it's like robotics, I guess you could call
Well,
it.
Yeah.
I know. And like you said, getting lazy. I can turn my camera off and do the dishes while I'm listening, and nobody would know.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
I'm listening, but it's still not. It's not a good idea.
And you brought up, that reminds me of something, it would almost make it so that you can actually disconnect from it and not actually even listen.
Well, yeah.
Sure, that's right.
I mean, you can in the house too. You can get up and leave, but it's impolite, and people are seeing you.
And people are gonna know it.
I know.
Yeah, over the Zoom year, it was kind of funny. On a few occasions, you'd hear a legislator would be having problems with a computer, and you'd think he was muted,
Oh yeah.
and you might hear an F-bomb go off, or you might hear other curse words, and
Yes.
everybody would kind of joke about it. And then other things have been said that the other party would demand an apology for something, and little slips like that aren't necessary, but funny sometimes.
Yeah.
We've debated this before, but I think it still needs to be talked about. What is your feeling on the mask mandates?
Go ahead, you can start with that one, Vicki.
Okay. Well, I did propose 4 bills this year that stayed on the wall. Most of our bills stay on the wall, don't they, Brian?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because the other party doesn't necessarily want us to have that say. But those bills were proposed, and one is particularly the right to our bodily autonomy. That what we do and take and decide and choose with our body is our right. And there's many constitutional reasons for that, and the Nuremberg Code, and so that's that fine line of a mask. I think we're going to look back and say, what were we thinking to wear masks for 14 months, and the data shows they really don't stop a virus, and data shows it doesn't even make a difference. So I look back and say the mask itself is harmful to your health.
I agree.
And you're breathing carbon dioxide. You're putting this on little children who need to breathe, and their brains are developing. So anyway, I just think it was a mistake in science. And I look back on it we all did it for the best of our fellow human beings and ourselves at the time, but I think it was a mistake.
Well, the Belgian study proved it.
Yes.
If you know the Belgian study, they did a study over 9 months. and they noticed the difference in people who got infected that wore masks that didn't was like 0.2%.
It's so minor.
It was very, very minor.
There's other precautions you can take.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's a lot.
I remember when the governor's mandate came out, I heard that and I called his office. Of course, I didn't get a chance to talk with him. And I'm glad I didn't at the time, because it wouldn't have been a fun conversation, and I know I would have lost it. I would have lost the conversation, I should say. I'd already lost it when I heard the mandate, but it should be up to someone whether they want to wear it. If people feel that it's going to help, fine, let them wear it. I didn't like the mask mandate. I would wear it. I'd wear a mask when I'd go into a store or go into a gas station when there's people around, and we wore them for a few of our select board meetings in Derby, and I'm glad it's over. And if people still want to wear a mask, adults can make up their own mind.
Yes.
If you want to wear a mask, wear one. But if you don't need to, then you certainly shouldn't have to.
I think I really question the governor's capacity to make such an executive order, and many governors now are being sued or called on the carpet for what was really an unconstitutional abuse of their power. So we'll see how that plays out in Vermont.
Yeah,
I don't
we will.
know.
Well, I know we're leading the nation right now in vaccine percentages, which is great. And, you know, I disagreed with Governor Scott on a number of things, but overall, I think he's done a pretty good job between him and Dr. Levine. I think they've done a pretty good job, but there are things there that I wouldn't agree with. So.
Well, it's just my opinion, and I've stated this before, that it seems that he wants Vermont's vaccine rate and the fact that we've had so few infections and people die and everything, he wants it as part of his legacy. However, I just read some statistics from 802 Freedom, Vermont, and they've dug deep into this. And of the 250 or 60 people that have died from COVID, actually there's only about 51
Yes.
actually died from the virus. The rest died with it, with other underlying illnesses.
Correct.
Right.
That's right.
Oh, boy.
That's right.
Exactly. You know, the vaccines are experimental, and the public has not been told that. And my fear particularly, and like Brian said about masks, if adults want to take this, research it, look into it. If it's the right thing for you, do it. But when it comes to children, we have to put on the brakes. And I'm horrified that some of these vaccine clinics are in schools. Sometimes children aren't being aware of what what's happening, what it is, what it'll do long term, and we're seeing long-term side effects, myocarditis in children now. It actually can make girls sterile, and so this is a big deal, and the brake should be put on this, and that's something the governor, I believe, has been naive about, and so is Levine, and someday we'll have to give account, and that's serious business when we're taking our children's health and longevity in our own hands without informed consent.
Yeah, and children seem to be at a very low risk anyway.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
Incredibly low risk, almost 100%. I mean, it might be 99.9% survive or just hardly have symptoms. So this is a big deal, and it's very serious, and we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, my wife and I both got the vaccine. We didn't have any side effects, but we've noticed that younger people do have a lot of side effects from these things. Luckily, we didn't. I didn't notice any fatigue or any headaches or fevers or anything.
I did have my first shot. I was tired, just couldn't move. The second shot, just the same thing. I slept for 20 hours.
Wow.
And prior to my getting the vaccination, I had COVID in November, and the effect of it, I wouldn't have known I had it if they hadn't told me I had it.
Huh.
So I stayed away from people for 3 weeks, and a few of my friends that I had been around went and got tested before I knew I had it. They went and got tested after I told them, and they were all negative. So I'm really glad of that. But I had 3 weeks off to go deer hunting. That's what I did.
I used to tell people back during the football season, I told people were saying to me, "Aren't you afraid of getting this?" I said, "No." I said, "I want to get it because 2 weeks later, Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson were playing pro football." So if that's the outcome, hey, give it to me, give it to me, you know.
Sure.
Anyways, moving right along, folks.
Going to be playing football.
I've seen many people that still wear masks, and it seems that even though the CDC says and the governor says that all clear, with few exceptions, many people are still clinging to these things, and I wonder why that is. There are some people still so scared, or what is the thinking here? Because I'm still seeing way too many people wearing these.
I wonder if it's somehow, I mean, it's like a security blanket in a sense. It takes a while to let it go. So maybe when it gets really hot, people will be like, I'm done.
It means absolutely nothing to me if someone still wants to wear a mask. Grown-ups can decide for themselves. I don't wear one. I don't see any need to wear one again. But if people are comfortable, they want to go into a grocery store or they want to go somewhere else and they want to wear a mask, it's not up to me to tell them what to do.
One thing that I'm a little troubled about is maybe some of them are wearing masks because the governor has mentioned and some businesses are mentioning unvaccinated people should wear a mask. And that right away points somebody out, like, oh, are they wearing a mask because they're unvaccinated? And the oddest thing to me is if you are vaccinated, then you are supposedly have some protection, and the unvaccinated who have no symptoms, what's the problem? So I don't get it. And however I decide to be vaccinated or not, I shouldn't have to be called out for it, and I shouldn't have to be identified whether I have a mask or not based on my vaccination status.
And technically, it's against the law to ask somebody if they've been vaccinated because that's a violation of HIPAA regulations, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right.
I think
You are absolutely right.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, no, we'll get into something else. I don't want to get on going here.
Okay.
You guys got me started now.
Okay, let's get back to
Get back to what we
legislature.
were talking about.
Let's talk about some bills.
Yeah, let's talk about
How
laws.
do you feel about hospitals still requiring these? Now, hospitals are saying because the CDC recommends this, then we're going to follow this. But nobody else is, and I don't understand the disconnect there.
I don't either, other than this.
I don't know. You shouldn't have to wear a mask anywhere because the government has said you don't need to wear a mask anymore.
Right.
That should be the end of the story right there. The mandates came out and everybody started wearing a mask. When the mandates ended, everybody should be able to stop wearing a mask.
And even beyond the mask problem was the fact that people couldn't visit loved ones in hospitals, or only one person, or sometimes none. My son and his wife had a baby, and he wasn't allowed to be in on a lot of the things happening around a baby. And I'm like, that's just not right. That's a family. So to disconnect families from each other, I think that's a tragedy, really.
There were reports of a couple having a child, and they were not allowed to see their child for 8 days in a hospital because of the fear. And I think the fear's gotten away with everybody, away from this. Yeah.
A good friend of mine, after a year and 3 or 4 months, finally got to go to a nursing home and hold her mother's hand.
Oh, right.
And see the room that her mother was living in. And it was a year and 3 months, and that's got to be hard on a family for something like that.
Well, what they're finding with people in nursing homes, because they've been so isolated, they're dying not from this virus, but from failure to thrive.
Right.
Sure.
They're isolated and they have nothing to live for. They can't see their family, they can't do anything, they can't leave their room.
Right.
So, I don't understand this thinking. As Mr. Spock would say, this is not logical.
Right.
It's not.
Just not logical.
Yeah.
How do you feel that Governor Scott is going to get the state up and running again?
Our economy, in other words, and everything.
Yeah, the economy, businesses, and things like that, because we've seen a lot of businesses get devastated because of this. So, does he have a plan to get things moving?
He hasn't told us.
Well, no, he hasn't. I think there's hopes that somehow this miraculous amount of money that's pouring into the state is going to right things around. But I have a problem with ARPA money. That's the American Recovery something Act.
It's all government funds that are
From the federal government. And have you noticed inflation happening in the grocery store?
certainly have.
Have you seen how much a piece of
Absolutely.
meat is?
Well, you want to talk about inflation? Let's talk about the $1 a gallon for gasoline.
Yeah.
It's up $1.
Yes. Oh,
Yep.
yeah. So we're spending this so-called money that's being printed, no gold backing, and now we're going to see inflation. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So in terms of the governor recovery for our state, I'm still anxious about the future because I even heard the Wayside restaurant closed. I hope that's not true.
I'd heard the same thing.
Oh,
Where's the Wayside?
the Wayside's between Barrie and Montpelier. Half
Yeah.
of it's in
Okay.
Montpelier. And it's just a wonderful family restaurant. It's been going for a couple generations.
In other places, a restaurant in town here that is for sale, the owner can't find help. Can't get the
Yes.
help. And all these these funds coming from the federal government are paying people to stay home and not work.
Mm-hmm.
And that money should be stopped so that people say, I got to go find a job.
Right.
And that's how you want people to go back to work, stop paying them to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's one of the biggest things, Terry,
Yeah.
getting the economy going again.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, I also heard that the governor was, reached out to the State Department to get more migrants into the state, or immigrants,
Yep.
and I'm not sure that that's a good idea either. If unemployment is so bad, why aren't we giving these jobs to people that are already here?
We surely
That's-
need to.
Yeah. I'd have a hard time discussing that without actually using some language that I shouldn't use on NEK-TV. So,
Dear.
And you know, amongst friends, you wouldn't have a problem, but there are broadcast standards,
Yeah,
Yes, there are.
and
There are.
and we try to adhere to them as best we can. Once in a while, something slips through, but we try to.
and with a lady in the room as well. Right?
I've let a few four-letter words slip. Well,
Here's something we discussed before the show. How do you feel about the bribing people to get vaccinated? For example, like I think I told you, I mean, the only one that I know of here in Vermont, and it could be more, was ice cream. And I like ice cream, and I'm going to get one because I've already got my vaccine. But I mean, in some states, it's pot and beer
oh, boy.
to get people to get vaccinated.
That in itself is reprehensible, just not even good. I don't even know. I'm speechless about it. I'm speechless. It's a terrible thing. Somebody shouldn't be bribed to take a vaccine.
Shouldn't have to be bribed.
Have they read what's in it? I mean, hello, we need to be informed, not bribed.
Yeah. And it was almost like the state of Vermont was pushing to get this 80% thing. And they pushed, and the governor basically said, well, I'm not going to open things back up until we get to 80%.
I don't know where they pulled that magic number out of the hat.
I don't either.
Supposedly it's to do with herd immunity, but I seriously
Oh.
doubt that.
You know, herd immunity happens when the majority of people or a certain percentage of people have had the virus, build up a natural immunity, and that does filter through the society. That's what herd immunity is, not fake immunizations. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said,
Let me tell you how I really feel.
All right, let it rip.
I've had vaccines before. I think sometimes they're overdone,
Yes.
but I've been lucky. I've always had fairly good results of them. For example, when my doctor said, have you had chicken pox? I said, yeah, I think I had it when I was like 6 or 5 or something. Well, you're at risk for shingles. You want a shingle shot? I said, okay, sure, I'll do that because I don't want that. But there's sometimes it just seems to be we're vaccinating for everything now.
And that's bizarre. It's somehow got to accumulate in your system. And your own immune system is a beautiful thing. Let's let it work.
Yeah.
Well, I got vaccinated, and when I first got my vaccination, I did it because my dad is 93. He lives in a community in Columbus, Ohio. They're still closed. And they will let people in after when they've proven they've been vaccinated. They haven't opened their doors yet, but when they do, they're going to want to see vaccination cards. And I don't have that many years left to see my father. And I'll do whatever it would take. So I got the vaccination. I wasn't crazy about it. But, and I guess being on a plane, they can't stop you from flying if you're not vaccinated. But I've got the cards, so I shouldn't have a problem, and I want to be able to get into the building that my father lives in.
And this seems like another form of coercion, doesn't
It
it?
is,
Well,
yeah,
it is.
it is, but I'm not going to argue with it. I don't like it, but I'm not going to argue with it if it means that gives me the opportunity to go and spend 3 or 4 days with my dad.
Yeah.
I think we all need to stand up as Americans and demand our rights and our freedom.
Absolutely.
Enough is enough, you know? You should have been able to go in and see him, whether you're vaccinated or not. You've had the virus.
That's
you
right.
have a natural immunity. The science isn't there for this coercion, Terry.
No, it isn't. And you know what? I'll just make a quick point before I have 2 more questions for you. Look across the border. If you want to see socialism gone crazy, go up to Canada.
Oh, boy.
Absolutely.
I
They
mean,
just closed their border to July 21st.
Really?
They went another month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
And-
that's affecting businesses here in the
And-
Northeast
and-
Kingdom.
Yeah.
In this country was such a friendly country to most everybody. I have many friends in Ontario, and they're saying it's nuts. The government
Yeah.
has gone crazy with this thing.
England is the same. They've actually had a protest of several million people.
Oh, yeah.
That was in London. I don't know if it made the media.
Yeah,
or
it
not.
did. I saw it, and I had them in Paris too.
Yes. So overseas, they're like, whoa, folks, you know, the government's getting out of control.
One question I wanted to ask you too was, are you going to run again in 2022?
Go ahead, Vicki.
You know, at the end of every session, you want to throw your hat on the floor and have a little fit and say, no,
Yeah.
I'll never do it again. And then you kind of rest up and regroup and you think, all right, well, maybe I could still keep going. I'm sure, you know, anyone, like a teacher at the end of a school year is like, oh, I'm so exhausted. So it's hard to say at the end of a session, isn't it?
I think so. This session didn't go well for me. Zoom bothered me. It affected my attitude, and I'll have a better answer for you than I don't know. Come the end of, when we go
Next
back
year.
to our seats in January, I've got some bills that I've been working on, and I want to see one of these, I have a bill increasing the fines for texting and driving. I want to see that become a law, because people are dying because of it.
I thought it was a law already.
It is, but it's not enforced.
Oh,
The fines are not stiff enough to make people think seriously before they start looking down at their telephone.
Yeah.
I don't want to die because some person is looking into their telephone trying to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
If I can accomplish something next January before the session ends, I probably would run again, but I can't say right now whether I'm going to or whether I'm not going to.
So much can happen between now and then,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
politically and in every way. So it is hard to say.
I'm taking this opportunity right now to thank you, Ms. Vicki, for setting up all of the legislators that came onto the show all during this session, and to keep your constituents informed as best we could.
Right.
It went out all over YouTube, and it went out all over the VMX, so people had a chance to, to listen. It wasn't like you were isolated,
Right.
and or if you didn't have cable television, you couldn't get to see this. So it went on everywhere. And I thank you very much for coming on, and we will do this again. I know for sure next year after the session gets going, Brian, we'll have you guys in again, and we'll see what's
Great.
happened.
Great. Thank you, Terry.
This is Terry Difazio for Dial It Up, saying if you don't like the answers you got here today, don't bother asking the questions. See you later.
Bye.